Hi, that last video, which actually I was filming 2 days ago now, cut off. And I actually know it cut off, and it kind of cut off at an opportune time. So when I upload that, which will be before I upload this one. So anyway, this is part 4. And on part 3 of the soundtrack one, I was talked about this one, and I just want to go ahead quickly and talk about track 9, which I said I liked, and I played it. It was that, and I did a little bit of reading about it. Sacred Harp Singers at Liberty Church. Sacred harp singing is a kind of singing. It's like a specific tradition of church singing. And I was describing it in the video before in a kind of not very accurate way, but what it is made up of, I think, 4 pitches. So there's bass singers, tenors, and altos, 2 tenor groups and 1 alto group, and they sing the harmonies together, but obviously at different pitches, completely a cappella. And it's it started off in New England in the US, and then became more associated with the South. In the mid, I don't know, what do you call that area, like Kentucky and Tennessee? Is that the South? The Mid-South? Not the, whatever, that kind of area as well. And they have this book of hymns. Like, for example, that one there, Going Home, I'm Going Home, is, I think, 286. And that the way that it works is that someone in the church just calls out a number. Okay, let's do number 73. And everyone knows what 73 is. There's like kind of a book of set songs. They don't like add new ones to it. It's quite interesting. I didn't go into in depth about it, but I listened to some other songs in the same style, sacred harp singing style. And it's quite amazing and quite beautiful. So I recommend having a listen to that song in particular, Sacred Heart Singers at Liberty Church, I'm Going Home, or any kind of Sacred Heart singing, because it really is quite unique and beautiful. Anyway, carrying on. So let's take out a handful. The Motorcycle Diaries. Gustavo Santaolalla. He is the guy who in part 1, or part 2, I talked about the Babel soundtrack, which I really love. Well, he did this one as well. Some great songs on this. I particularly like that first one, Apertura, and number 10, La Muerte de la Poderosa, the death of the powerful one, I think, which is the name of their motorbike. The motorbike was called La Poderosa. El Otro Lado del Rio, which is Dan Bohorge Drexler, who's a Uruguayan singer. He's not really a folk singer so much. Although I've listened to very little of his, but the stuff I have listened to sounds quite contemporary, but maybe he does have some folk elements in some of his stuff. But I really like that song. I think that was nominated for Best Song at the Oscars, Best Original Soundtrack Song. But there's some other good songs on here as well. Was it that Chipe Chipe, or that's one, number 4, Chipe Chipe? I think that was in the scene where they're dancing. Che and Alberto were dancing with some woman, and I'm pretty sure that Chipe Chipe song was playing. But a great soundtrack, a great movie as well. I really like that movie, but in particular, a great soundtrack. I was really happy when I found this for $1. Kind of thing I never thought I'd find. But one of my most listened to soundtracks, The Motorcycle Diaries. The Crying Game, music from the motion picture, Boy George Cicero, Carol Thompson, and Ann Dudley. Don't know much about this. You can see that the original price was $19.99. God knows when that was. When was The Crying Game around? The late 80s, I think. I can't see a year. It's that, got that late 80s, early 90s Bear CD, 92 it says there. can't really say much about this because I think I've only listened to it once or twice, but that is a soundtrack for the movie. Cocktail, with our man, a young Tom Cruise. When this came, this was about 87 from memory. Look, the case is broken. That's a shame. Oh, you can see the hinge there. 87, I'm going to guess. 88. Okay, a year off from Touchstone Pictures. So Tom Cruise, when did he? I guess 88 was post Top Gun, because Top Gun was like 86, 87. But he'd been in a few movies before this. He'd been in The Outsiders, which I think was before he had his teeth fixed. But we've got Starship, Fabulous Thunderbirds, Robbie Neville, Bobby McFerrin, Don't Worry, Be Happy, of course. And the big song on this that everyone associates with it, or at least I do, Kokomo, which is a very late Beach Boys number. Some people, this was in the era where Mike Love had taken over. He had taken over the Beach Boys well before that, but certainly any of the songs coming out in this era were Mike Love directed and orchestrated. And a lot of people really don't like Mike Love, and he does seem like a bit of a prick. But anyway, there's that song Kokomo, and I guess people are gonna feel how they feel about that song. It's as cheesy as they come, but it's still, I think it's a pretty great song. Like, it kind of moves beyond that to be of itself. You can also see John Cougar Mellencamp doing a Rave-On cover, and Little Richard doing Tutti Frutti. Another classic, the Labyrinth soundtrack. I remember seeing Labyrinth in the movie theater when I would have been about 6 or 7. It was so long ago that it was still at the time where they had intermission. Remember they used to have intermission in movies, where in the middle of the movie they'd have a 15-minute break where you could go to the toilet and get some more food to eat or whatever like that. Obviously they don't do that now. Well, I don't think they do. I haven't been in a movie theater for fucking decades since they've done that. So I don't think it's a thing anymore. But that's how long ago it was. So when this came out in late 80s as well. 86, God, was it that early? So I would have guessed more close to 89, but obviously not. Jim Henson film. And obviously a David Bowie focused soundtrack. I don't know if he did every song on this. Obviously the big famous one is the dance Magic Dance one. I can't remember if he did all those songs or not, or there's other bits and pieces by other people. Okay, and the original score by Trevor Jones. Okay, so it's got these songs by David Bowie, Underground, Magic Dance, Chilly Down, As the World Falls Down Within You, and then, yes, is the original score. But I remember loving this movie when I first saw it. I would have been very young though. I must have been like 5 or 6 years old. Kolya. Never seen this movie. Have seen the movie around, and I know, it was a nominee for the best foreign film at the Oscars. Looks like it also won the best foreign film at the Golden Globe Awards. I think it was a Russian movie, although Jan Sevrak is not a Russian director. But Kolya is the diminutive of the Russian diminutive of Nicholas. So I know that's a Russian name, but maybe that's just the name. This came out in 96. Is it 96 or 86? 96. Yeah, 96. No, it doesn't give any clue as to the movie. What happens in the movie. I can see you got some Antonin, how do you pronounce his name? Dvorak, who was a Czech, I guess what we used to call Czechoslovakia, but nowadays the Czech Republic, a Czech composer, who, when you hear his stuff, you know it. His compositions. It's one of those composers who isn't maybe obviously as name recognition isn't up there with Chopin or Beethoven or Mozart or Bach or whatever, but when you hear his compositions, you're like, oh, I know that, I've heard that before. So maybe it's a Czech movie, perhaps. But anyway, got that, and that was 50 cents apparently. Another Disney, the Aladdin soundtrack, a classic, Academy Award winner for Best Original Score and Best Original Song, which is A Whole New World by Peabo Bryson and Regina Bell. I know that it was Peabo Bryson. I didn't know that this female singer was Regina Bell. I've never actually heard of Regina Bell before. But there you go. Music by Alan Menken. Lyrics by Howard Asham and Tim Rice. Tim Rice, who obviously did a lot of the... he wrote together with Andrew Lloyd Webber for a lot of those musicals, like The Phantom of the Opera and Les Miserables and those kinds of, I guess, 70s, 80s, 90s musicals, Broadway, London, East End musicals. West End musicals. West End girls. So yeah, if you've seen that movie, you know it's from the beginning to the end full of a whole bunch of songs that are pretty memorable. So yeah, and again, like I said, when I see these, I think, oh, my son will like that. But then actually, he's actually seen Aladdin. They watch it at school. I remember him telling me, but he's not that interested in Disney stuff. Full stop. Really, he liked Inside Out 2. That came out. Was that Disney or was that Pixar? Well, I guess Disney owns Pixar, don't they? City of Angels. Now, the reason I got this is I saw this movie probably about 2 years after it came out. It came out in the late 90s, didn't it? 97, 98. I probably would have seen it about 2000, 2001. And I quite liked, 98 it came out, with Meg Ryan and Nicolas Cage. I quite liked the Alanis Morissette number, and Uninvited. A bit, what's the word? Angsty, I guess, that song. But also, I've always, sometimes I've heard it, I feel I really like that song, and then other times I hear it, I think that's okay. But that's the reason why I got this. But what else we got on here? We've got Eric Clapton, Peter Gabriel, Goo Goo Dolls, Sarah McLachlan, Angel. You know that song Angel? I may have talked about this before. I know in America, or North and maybe Canada as well, North America, that they use that on a television commercial for donating to an animal protection charity, or I think save animals from out of bad situations. But I always thought that song was just kind of like a I don't know. You hear those kinds of songs so much, like on radio, easy listening radio, and like everywhere. I've probably heard that song 100 times before I actually learned what it was about. But anyway, one day I was reading the Wikipedia about it for some reason, or maybe, I don't know. The guy in the Smashing Pumpkins, it was actually just in the touring band of the Smashing Pumpkins. His name was Jonathan Melvoin. And on the kind of the era of Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, and when they did their world tour, he was the touring keyboardist for them. You actually see him in the video for Zero, playing the piano on that, just very briefly. Well, he had a heroin overdose during that tour with the Smashing Pumpkins in around 95. No, it would have been 96. Yeah, 96, I think. And he died. He was with Jimmy Chamberlain, the drummer. That's how Jimmy Chamberlain got fired that first time, was because his drug abuse had kind of got to that point. And she wrote the song. No, she didn't know him, Jonathan Melvoin. Didn't know him at all. She said that event was the catalyst for her to write that song. It wasn't just about him. It was more about all the kind of young male rock stars that had been dying. I guess not just male, young kind of rock stars of that era, the kind of early mid 90s. So Kurt Cobain, obviously, and I guess before him, Andrew Wood and Shannon Hoon, and obviously after others as well. But at that time, certainly those ones. She said that she kind of, I can't remember the exact words she said in the interview I read, but it was kind of like this. She was affected by it, or she felt kind of like sympathy. And so I went back and read and listened to the song and then read the lyrics and I was, it's actually quite a when you know the meaning of the song, it's quite a touching song. You know, some people would say that it's kind of like one of those purposefully what's the word, kind of like maudlin, or like tries to attack your emotions, like almost like emotional pornography, the way that song is kind of written, and the way it's written, and the way she sings. But if you read the lyrics and you know what it's about, it's quite like I don't know how you would describe it, beautiful, but in a very sad way. Like she's just singing about some guy who is using drugs to escape, and then she uses the idea of, you know, obviously using heroin, and then for the final time you kind of drift into death in the arms of an angel. And there's like that really quite affecting line of, in this cold dark hotel room, because he died in a hotel room in New York City, and just the idea of he's alone in this, he wasn't alone, but he's alone in this cold dark hotel room by himself using drugs, and he overdoses and dies alone. So yeah, I recommend listening to that song, go back and reading the lyrics with that in mind, and kind of imagining what she was thinking and what she was trying to put across in the song. Anyway, that's a diversion. Quiz Show. That was a mid-90s type movie. Never seen that. But this is kind of, from my memory playing it, kind of jazz in bits and pieces. You can see there's a "I Will Love It" song at the top. That's not jazz. Well, there's Ralph Fiennes. I didn't know he was in the movie. What year did this come out? 94. So this was the same year as Schindler's List was released, which obviously was his kind of, I guess, his most famous movie, I would say. All tracks except for Moritat, which is the level one, by Mark Isham, composed by Kurt Weill. So I'm pretty sure, this is just from memory, that it's kind of like just typical jazz, 50s era jazz music, but obviously not. I see you would see there. So, sorry, that's out of focus, isn't it? God damn it, get in there. Trumpet, sax, bass. So that, you know, that would lead me to assume that yes, I am right. It is jazz music because they're using those wind instruments. Can't see the original price now. So I think I see, like, originally my idea was just collecting 1990s decade movies, and you see most of my CDs soundtracks actually are from the 90s, but I kind of branched off a little bit since then to go outside of that. Lost in Translation, classic soundtrack, some great songs on this. I think I've shown this before, but that song by Phoenix, Too Young, brilliant song. Kaze wo Atsumete by Happy End, brilliant song. Sometimes by My Bloody Valentine, amazing. Alone in Kyoto by Air, amazing. It's one of the best beginning to end soundtracks, certainly from this era of the 2000s, in my opinion. And it, you know, it's hard to know whether it's that the movie did it or that Sofia Coppola or whoever picked the music so well that it fits. But like, if you've been to Japan, and a certain part of Japan, and I don't mean part as in location, I mean as in a certain atmosphere of Japan, this music kind of fits so perfectly. Brilliant, brilliant soundtrack, in my opinion. I ended up picking this up as almost like a giving up because this is one of the most common soundtracks to see in New Zealand secondhand shops. I guess it was very popular and it sold very well, and so therefore it's very common. And so I saw this again and again and again, and I thought, I don't want this, I don't want this. And then I ended up getting like, well, it's from the 1990s. I don't know why. Why did I? I've never seen Sleeps in Seattle, but we see the music. We've got Louis Armstrong, Nat King Cole. Oh, why did that focus do that? It's really annoying. Carly Simon, Gene Autry, Tammy Wynette, Stand By Your Man. So it's kind of across the board here. It doesn't really fit into any one particular mood or yeah, I mean mood. I guess. Obviously, they're kind of love songs or around romance of some kind, but I mean they don't fit specifically into one era or anything like that. You've got country and soul and other bits and pieces in there. When I Fall in Love by Celine Dion and Clive Griffin. Off the top of my head, I can't think how that song goes, but I'm sure if I played it, I would know. Tour of Duty. I've talked about this before. I remember when I bought this, I showed this. And I talked about how there was 2 Vietnam era TV shows in the late 80s, early 90s. There was this and China Beach. And one of them used Reflections by Diana Ross and the Supremes. Or was it just Diana Ross? This might have been after the Supremes, I don't know. But anyway, and I think I mixed it up. And then I realized, I was like, oh shit, that's a different show. I just got mixed up between Tour of Duty and China Beach. This one, we got Baby Love, talking about the Diana Ross and the Supremes. Baby Love, Here Comes the Night. We got to get out of this place. A Whiter Shade of Pale. So it's a pretty classic 60 songs. Ichiku Park, All Along the Watchtower. Hurdy Gurdy Man, Time of the Season by the Zombies. Is this a double disc? No, so a lot of songs on one CD. War, what's going on? Time Has Come. And Take You Higher. So the second part's much more soul. What would you call it? Different than the other first side, which is more stereotypical 60s sounding. Anyway, some good songs on that. I think there's several volumes. This is the first one. I think it goes like Tour of Duty Volume 1 and 2, 2 and 3 after that. 23 minutes, I'll show a couple more because otherwise I get cut off again. Ocean's 12. I don't think I've got Ocean's 11, so this is the sequel. This is music inspired by the motion picture. I'm always kind of confused by that. Music by David Holmes. Does that mean it's the score? Or he wrote the songs after we watched the movie, going, oh, that inspired me, and wrote a bunch of songs but have no actual, that are not feature in the movie in any way. I don't know. I would have only listened to this once, and I have no memory of listening to it, which is not a good thing, because this is outside the 90s, so there's no real reason I would have bought this. It's the original price was $24.99. Soundtrack wall. And I got it probably for either $1 or 50 cents. Shine, original motion picture soundtrack. This came out in the mid-90s, 96. I'm going to take a stab. And it was, can't see a date, 96. Never seen this movie, but I know, yeah, Jeffrey Rush is in it, and he plays some guy, kind of like a mad genius who plays the piano. So it's a lot of classical piano music, as you'd imagine, amongst other things. Music composed and orchestrated by David Hirschfelder, except where indicated, such as we have Vivaldi, Beethoven, Liszt, Rachmaninoff, Chopin, etc. And last one for now, The Crimson Tide, or just Crimson Tide, not The Crimson Tide. This is by Hans Zimmer. This is another one I got mixed up. I was thinking of the Hunt for Red October, which I do think I have, The Hunt for Red October, somewhere in here, which was later 80s, around 89, whereas The Crimson Tide was a bit later, early 90s, or mid 90s, 95. And yes, we got Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington. Music composed by Hans Zimmer, a name that pops up again and again in lots of movies that you didn't even know he was in. It's a Jerry Bruckheimer production. Filmed by Tony Scott, Ridley Scott's brother, who did Top Gun. And didn't he? I think he took his life. Did he, or did he? I shouldn't say that. He did die though. But wasn't there? I'm sure there was something around it that happened. Anyway, don't have much memory of listening to this either. But I generally like stuff by Hans Zimmer. Anyway, we're getting through them, but probably too slowly. And I probably need to talk less and just show them, because this is already part 4. And I've still got over half a box to go. So we're going to have to see about me doing it faster. Anyway, thanks for watching.